Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez calls for a snap election for April 28th. This after his government failed to get its budget through Parliament. We'll be crossing shortly to Madrid to get the latest from our correspondent Sarah Morris. Also, US President Donald Trump set to declare a national emergency to bypass Congress in order to build his long-promised wall along the US-Mexican border. And the Haitian leader breaks his silence after street protests have claimed the lives of at least 7 people. He says he will not let his country fall into the hands of armed gangs and drug traffickers. Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome back to the France 24 newsroom, and we begin in Madrid, where Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has called a snap election for April 28th. It's the country's third poll in less than 4 years. It comes after the government suffered a defeat in Parliament on Wednesday, failing to get its budget through, as Catalan pro-independent parties sided with right-wing opposition and rejected the spending plan. This is what the Prime Minister told reporters earlier.
Between the two options, doing nothing and carrying on without a budget, or convening to give the Spanish people a choice, I choose the second. I propose the dissolution of Parliament and announce a general election for the 28th of April.
And let's get more from our correspondent in Madrid, Sarah Morris. After the government's defeat on Wednesday, this announcement is no surprise, is it, Sarah?
It certainly isn't. We expected this announcement. We just didn't know when the election date would be set. The opposition leader, Pablo Casado, a Conservative, had said that it should be on Super Sunday, coinciding with the May elections. But Pedro Sanchez has plumped for April, end of April 28th. That may be that he's listened to some of those regional leaders that were particularly upset about the Andalusian election in December, when the socialists lost their stronghold, and some of them blamed it on the central government of Pedro Sanchez. That means that the Spaniards will be going to the polls, as you said, for the third time in a general election in virtually as many years. Pedro Sanchez said that he'd been blocked from carrying out social measures by the blockade on the right wing. We've already heard Pablo Casado saying this will be an election fought over the Catalan question, because the negotiations between Quim Torra, the president of Catalonia, precipitated this blockade, as the Conservatives see it, in the national parliament. And the Conservatives saying that this will be an election about whether Spaniards want to negotiate with Catalan nationalists or whether they want to take back control of that region.
Sarah, it's early days yet, but what are polls showing? I mean, what are the chances, say, for the Socialist Party of winning that election in April?
The average of the opinion polls to date put out by El País suggests the Socialists could top the polls, winning 24% of the vote. But this will be, if the opinion polls are to be believed, a very, very fragmented parliament, and the Socialists won't get an absolute majority. And their allies, the Podemos party on the left, might lose as many as 20 seats. And we could see the rise of a new far-right party, Vox. It won seats for the first time in Andalusia. The opinion polls suggest that it could do the same, making it a potential kingmaker. That may mean that Vox ousts or helps oust the socialists to put in some kind of right-wing coalition. And we've already heard from Vox's leader, Santiago Abascal, saying that his party's already proved that the enemies of Spain aren't strong enough, and that this will be an election fought very much over the Catalan question.
Sarah Morris reporting there from Madrid. Thank you. To Washington now, where US President Donald Trump has said he will invoke rare national emergency powers to secure funding for his planned border wall with Mexico. The highly contentious move allows Trump to bypass Congress, which has refused to approve the money needed. Senior Democrats are accusing the president of a gross abuse of power, while several Republicans have also voiced their concerns. Emerald Maxwell has more.
The wall is very, very on its way.
Donald Trump repeating his long-time campaign pledge, one that he may go to extreme lengths to avoid surrendering. The US president is planning to declare a national emergency because the border security bill, which he has agreed to sign, doesn't give him the funding he needs for his Mexican border wall.
He's indicated he's prepared to sign the bill. He will also be issuing a national emergency declaration at the same time.
Making such a declaration would free Trump to redirect federal funds from elsewhere to help pay for the wall. The statement immediately prompted condemnation that he was abusing his authority and a warning from Democrats that it would set a potentially problematic precedent that could come back to bite Republicans.
If you want to go down that path, then let's look at what really is a national emergency. I'm not advocating for any president doing an end run around Congress. I'm just saying that the Republicans should have some dismay about the door that they are opening, the threshold they are crossing.
But despite Trump's threat, and under pressure to avoid another government shutdown, Congress voted overwhelmingly to pass the border security bill.
The yeas are 300, the nays are 128.
A package which provides $1.3 billion for border barriers, far from the $5.7 billion that Trump wanted for his long-promised wall.
Moving on, and India is calling for sanctions against the Islamic militant group it says carried out Thursday's suicide attack in Indian-administered Kashmir. Delhi wants the leader of the Pakistan-based group to be listed as a terrorist by the United Nations. At least 40 Indian paramilitary police were killed when an explosive-laden vehicle hit a police convoy. Let's get more from Mandakini Galot in New Delhi. Mandakini, what is the latest with this developing story?
Well, some strong words from the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi this morning. He spoke to the press following a meeting with members of his cabinet and his closest national security advisors and said that India will give a strong response to this attack. I'd just like to quote from his speech where he says, "The blood of the people is boiling and forces behind this act of terrorism will definitely be punished." Now, this was the worst attack of terrorism in a region on security personnel in a region that is no stranger to attacks on soldiers from militants. Keep in mind that the attack comes just a month ahead of the massive general election in which 850 million Indians will vote to elect their next government. For the moment, the Prime Minister and his allies have cancelled all campaign events to focus on Kashmir, and the opposition too has said that it stands with the government and will not politicize the issue. Incidentally, Prime Minister Modi was in Kashmir just 10 days ago, where in a strongly worded speech, he said that he will break the backbone of terror in the state. And experts here believe that this close to the national polls, voters will be asking if he has kept that promise. Now, the attack, as you said, has been claimed by Jaish-e-Mohammed, a Pakistan-based terror outfit that has been accused of carrying out attacks on India in the past. The last time they struck, back in 2016, India responded by carrying out military incursions inside Pakistani territory to destroy militant launch pads. So all eyes are on New Delhi this morning to see if the country will consider a military response or limit itself to the diplomatic actions that we've seen this morning.
From what you're saying, Mandakini, this is truly ratcheting up tensions between these two nations, isn't it?
Absolutely. Relations between these two nuclear rivals have always been tense, but yesterday's attack has really plunged that relationship to a new low. India is now asking for the complete diplomatic isolation of Pakistan. In his speech this morning, Prime Minister Modi did not name Pakistan, but he did not shy away from saying, if our neighbor, which is totally isolated in the world and thinks it can destabilize India through its tactics and conspiracies, then it's making a huge mistake. More concretely, India has withdrawn the most favored nation status that it had granted to Pakistan back in 1996. And this is likely to massively slow down trade between the two countries. The decision will enable India to increase custom duties on goods imported from Pakistan. Now, India's foreign secretary summoned Pakistan's envoy this morning and has conveyed that Pakistan must take immediate and verifiable action against Jaish-e-Mohammed, and that it must immediately stop groups or individuals associated with terrorism from operating from its territories. India also rejected the statement of Pakistan's foreign ministry condemning the attacks. Now, the fact that Jaish-e-Mohammed's leader Masood Azhar continues to live and operate freely from Pakistan has been a major bone of contention between the two countries for a while now.
Mandakini Galot reporting there from New Delhi. Thank you. And the Haitian president says he will not let his country fall into the hands of armed gangs and drug traffickers. Jovenel Moise has given a broadcast to the nation, breaking his silence after days of violent street protests which claimed the lives of at least 7 people. Let's take a listen to what he said earlier.
I have listened to the people. I know what you are being faced with. That's why I have brought in a series of measures. I've asked the Prime Minister to come and explain them and to adopt them quickly so that we can end people's misery immediately. I, Jovenel Moise, head of state, I won't leave the country in the hands of armed gangs and drug traffickers.
And another parliamentary defeat for the British Prime Minister Theresa May as Brexit draws closer. MPs voting by 303 to 258, a majority of 45, against a motion endorsing the government's negotiating strategy. However, the defeat has no legal force, and Downing Street says it will not change the Prime Minister's approach to talks with the EU. And in news just coming through, France has sent its ambassador back to Italy this Friday following the biggest diplomatic dispute between the two countries since World War II. The French European Minister, Nathalie Loiseau, told French radio that the ambassador had returned to Rome. She also said that the Italian President, Sergio Mattarella, had called French President Emmanuel Macron, and both had agreed on how important the friendship was between the two nations. France, of course, recalling its ambassador last week to protest perceived Italian meddling in French domestic politics. This after the Italian Deputy Prime Minister met French Yellow Vest activists seeking to run for the European Parliament.
He's gone back to Rome today. The President of the Italian Republic, Sergio Mattarella, called President Macron and they talked. They discussed how important the friendship between France and Italy was and how much the two countries need each other. We've also heard from political leaders who said they regret their frankly unacceptable and unfriendly words and behaviour.
And finally, archaeologists have been falling in love with an image of a man who fell in love with his own reflection. A fresco has been discovered in the ancient Roman city of Pompeii, portraying the mythological hunter Narcissus. Pompeii, of course, being blanketed in lava and destroyed in a volcanic eruption in the year AD 79, a disaster that killed more than 2,000 people.
He loved only himself. Almost 2,000 years after life in Pompeii was brought to a standstill, archaeologists have discovered a fresco of the Greek mythological figure who died from his own beauty. The finding in southern Italy comes just months after a first fresco, along with several vases, were found in the same ancient residence.
We're in the hall, and here you can see scenes from Greek mythology, notably the myth of Narcissus. He's looking at his reflection in the water, which is a recurring theme in Pompeii.
Legend has it that Narcissus was struck by the beauty of his own reflection in a pool of water and melted from the fire of passion that burnt inside him. Archaeologists are hoping to find more artefacts among the ruins of what was once a thriving Roman city. Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, wiping out life in the city and burying it in several meters of ash. While in recent years Italian authorities have been criticised for failing to preserve the ruins, it remains one of the most visited historical sites in the world.
And that's it for this edition. Do stay with us here on France 24.
Because a new page of history gets written every day. Because breaking news can't wait. Information everywhere. In all situations, on every subject. Understanding the world. Imagining the world. France 24, a different take on the news.